All right. How's it going, everyone? Happy Friday. Nick Morrow, DFS here, as always, helping you break down tonight's or tomorrow's UFC Vegas 109 card. We will be breaking the card down not only from a DFS kind of angle, but also a betting angle. I'm going to go through fight by fight and kind of give you guys spoiler alert, I have my best bets on the screen way too early. But yeah, I'm going to go through fight by fight, kind of give you guys my insight as far as who I think wins and why, a little bit about the stylistic matchups. Also going to be referencing the Occupy Fantasy content that's behind the paywall, right? We get the model. We'll have our top plays in the model. We'll show you guys the top owned plays as of right now. Derek Phillips is working hard on the MMA plug for tomorrow as well. That's our extended article behind the paywall. We're going to get a little bit of an excerpt from that. Again, this is mostly geared towards DFS. We're talking about behind the paywall. There are bets, etc., in that daily plug as well. But as most of you know who have been tuning in, I'll have my best bets at the end of the show. I'll also be giving some long shots. Quick recap from last week. We bounced back nicely. Really, really terrible week in Abu Dhabi 2 weeks ago. We went 0-4, 3-1 this time. Bashi by KO or sub, easy. Ribovic in over 1.5. The fight played out a little closer than expected. Tyra by KO or sub was great. Rebecca and Duncan under 2.5 felt like a bad beat when you consider that fights have been stopped for much less than what we're seeing from Rebecca's eye. At the same time, as a fan, I'm pretty damn happy they let that fight go on. Two fight of the nights on that card in the Apex, looking to build on that momentum here as we come into this week. So, really interesting card as far as Apex cards go, at least at the top end, because Roman Dolidze and Anthony Hernandez are kind of two of the dark horses, quote unquote, of the division at 185 pounds. And yeah, I mean, we've seen mixed results out of Roman. Anthony Hernandez is on a 7 fight win streak. Roman on a 3 fight win streak of his own. But very interesting stylistic matchup here. Before I do get into the breakdown of that main event, just a little bit more housekeeping. I do just want to let you know, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. That helps us keep getting this free content out to you on a regular basis. Also going to plug what you're seeing above me here. Just become a member at Occupy Fantasy. One of the cheapest points of premium content, in the industry. You get access to the slate breakdown written by Derek Phillips. We have the model, which is very, very valuable, even on weeks when the picks aren't on point. It really helps you win in DFS. Ownership projections. We have the lineup builder as well if you're looking to mass multi-enter. All for as low as $7 a week. And as this room fills up, and I'll remind you guys of this, hopefully, as more people get in here. And this goes for anyone, whether you're watching live or the recorded version of the show. We're going to do a little giveaway this week. I talked to Brian. He said, hey, we could give a month of premium away on the show, hopefully to get more engagement. I appreciate the comments throughout the show, but when you guys comment on the video, like when they show up on the bottom of the YouTube video, that really helps us in the algorithm. So what we're going to do, free month of premium content. And gets you right behind the paywall. I think you'll probably get access to the Discord as well. But you have to be a new member. If you're already in there, we appreciate it. But yeah, this is for new members only. But comment below how many significant strikes you think there will be in this main event between Hernandez and Dolidze. I know that a lot of people expect a lot of grappling here, but the number of significant strikes, whoever is closest in the main event and a new member will get a month of premium access to Occupy. That's the model, ownership projections, articles, and everything else behind that paywall. But yeah, let's get into the fight by fight breakdown here. Again, appreciate you being here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's get into these fights. Again, first fight on the card, we have Anthony Hernandez taking on Roman Dolidze. Already mentioned it. Dolidze on a 3 fight win streak. Anthony Hernandez on a 7 fight win streak of his own. This fight was originally scheduled to take place, I think, about a year ago. Hernandez broke his hand. I think Collins stepped into that one and obviously lost to Dolidze there. But yeah, I mean, really kind of an interesting stylistic matchup here, right? Whenever I talk about binary fights, or at least 8 times out of 10, I'm talking about a striker versus a grappler. This fight's binary in that I think Roman Dolidze is going to be very live early, and as the fight wears on, Hernandez is probably going to take over, as we often see him do. We could go back to another Hernandez main event, which took place in the Apex between him and Michel Pereira, where Pereira was hurting him to the body early, looked dominant in that first round, and from there he really pulled away, ultimately getting the finish in the 5th round, scoring tremendous as far as DFS goes, 192 DK points. And yeah, he chases finishes. He's got enough power in his hands. that he can land KO shots, and more than anything, he's just super dangerous on the mat. Relentless grappling. Not to compare him to Marab, but kind of a similar style in that he is going to chase takedowns relentlessly, even if he doesn't get them, push his opponents up against the cage, work for those takedowns, and he's really good when it comes to his jiu-jitsu on the mat. It was a submission via fatigue more than anything else, don't get me wrong, but the fact that he submitted Rodolfo Vieira is certainly a nice feather in his cap. That is what sparked the 7-fight win streak here. He's been excellent. Coming off one of the better wins of his career over Brandon Allen, given Allen's kind of credentials. A fight he didn't look great in, but if you listen to the media this week, he's better now. He's healthy. He said he was injured going into that fight. I think it was rib issues. Don't quote me on that. Something in his midsection, which is going to be a bit of a theme here for him. But yeah, I think we see a better version of Hernandez. The question is his durability. We've seen him KO'd early in his career. We've seen him hurt at times against inferior competition to what he's going to be seeing here against Dolidze. But his cardio is tremendous. And like we saw against Pereira, if he could weather that early storm, I do think he's one of the best plays on the entire slate. To talk little bit about the underdog here, though, in Roman Dolidze, freak athlete, right? Really, really talented fighter, but super inconsistent, questionable fight IQ. I don't like his footwork as a striker. He's a little bit clunky, kind of crosses over himself more than anyone should at this level, but does a great job mixing kicks into his combinations, right? He does throw enough volume. We saw it against Vittori where he landed 141 significant strikes over 5 rounds. Didn't score great in that fight, but did give a really good showing of himself. Other wins over Holland where he injured Holland, but prior to that, I mean, a lot of decisions. So thing is, even if Dolidze gets it done here, is he going to score well? That's a question some of you may have. I would say yes, because I actually think his path is only in the early rounds. He's a freak athlete. When you see him face off against Hernandez, definitely thicker, more of a muscle bound type fighter. But at the same time, yeah, I just think that is only going to serve him in probably the first or second round, maybe a little bit longer than that. We'll get to the best bets at the end, but I do have a long shot on Dolidze as a bit of a hedge because I do prefer the Hernandez side here. So looking at the money line, minus 320 now does feel kind of inflated. I think there's different ways you could approach this. I know that DK has Hernandez in over 2.5 rounds at around a minus 160. You could also take Hernandez inside the distance. There are ways to make that line shorter. But yeah, if I'm talking about pure value from a money line side, and that's the way you bet, I do think Dolidze holds more value if you're always going to be betting on value. But if you're not someone who does that specifically, and you don't just chase these inflated money lines every single week, because that is a great strategy, but you have to be consistent in it. I would rather have Hernandez here. And also, if you're parlaying him, it's very easy to hedge out going into that last fight with the heavy underdog on the other side. As far as DFS goes, I need to pull up the graphics here. We have from our model Hernandez scoring as the best play on the entire slate. I know I'm not surprised. Again, scoring tremendously against Michel Pereira. He grapples relentlessly. Again, similar to a Marab that really plays well for DFS. OF index score of 193, which is a proprietary number, but it really does capture his upside, and it's higher than anyone else's on the slate. In that same breath, though, one of the highest owned plays on the slate at 63% over on DK. I believe it's similar over on FanDuel, and he is more expensive, I think, relatively speaking, on FanDuel. So love him on both sides. Great play, but it's probably wise if you're playing a bunch of lineups to hedge with a little bit of Roman because his win condition is probably via early finish. So Price is an underdog. If he were to win, he'd certainly be optimal. Not a fight I'd really consider stacking. At the same time, I mean, we recently had the fight between Whitaker and DeRitter. They both scored out right, but I know personally I did not see that fight going 5 rounds unless Whitaker was winning, and we saw Duplessis pull it off. I kind of feel very similar about this fight. If it goes 5 rounds, I'm pretty confident in Hernandez, but I actually think he'll probably finish it late just to kind of round out that full prediction there. But really fun matchup between two talented guys, two dark horses in the division. I really like Hernandez. I think his style is tough for a lot of what he's been facing. But yeah, let's keep going here. Go into the co-main event. We have Ode Osborne taking on Steve Urseg. So Urseg, I think, was supposed to fight Park before Park filled in for an injured Albazi to fight to Tsuro Taira, right? A lot of shuffling going around at the top of this flyweight division. Ursig, his best performance was that loss to the champ Alexandre Pantoja. Honestly, gave him a better fight than most of what Pantoja has seen on this title run. But after that, really no good momentum coming into this fight, getting KO'd by Cara France, and then losing a very convincing decision to Brandon Moreno. Obviously, those are two title challengers. Moreno, obviously a former title holder. Don't want to be too hard on him for that, but a few red flags coming off those losses. On the other side here, we have Ode Osborne taking this fight on short notice. It's notable. This fight's actually going to be at 135 pounds. So these guys usually fight down at flyweight. This fight will be at bantamweight. Who does that favor? It's tough to say for sure. Ode is the one taking the fight on short notice, but he's historically had cardio and chin issues. I think his weight cut is a big reason for that. So there is a chance that that's kind of corrected here, moving up a weight class. But at the same time, I think Urseg, skill for skill, is the better fighter. It's just an interesting matchup because we did see him kind of flash KO'd against Cara France. I do think Ode has similar power to Cara France, obviously not nearly as skilled in any other metric. But yeah, I think it's enough to at least have some concern if you're heavy on Steve Ursig here. I will say I think Ursig is the better fighter. I think he's more skilled. I think his career trajectory at this point between these two respectively is certainly higher than what we're seeing out of Ode. Ode, kind of a perennial underperformer. I think him at his best can be very competitive here. I also think he's live for the KO upset, but I do think Ursig's the side, especially with this fight taking place on short notice, even being up a weight class. The issue is looking at the money line, it's around minus 600, 500, depending on the book. So it's kind of tricky to find an angle. I actually think the under here is a really good play either way. If Ursig does get caught, I mean, you're kind of covered in that under 2.5. But I think Ursig on the mat here has a major, major advantage. I think he has a good chance to maybe find the submission. He has pretty powerful hands of his own. We saw him KO match now. That's some tremendous feat, but it's enough for me to at least think that he has that in his range of outcomes here. So Ursig inside the distance, I believe, is around even money. Also, that under 2.5, actually my favorite play on this fight. But as far as DFS goes, taking a quick look, I don't think they're at the top of the ownership. No, neither is. I will say Ode has plenty of upside as an underdog. Very much boomer bust, though. I think Ursig wins this fight more often than not. It's a question of how well is he going to score between the compared to the other expensive plays. Even in his wins, even in the KO over Schnell, just not the highest volume guy. Not really taking guys down all that often, even though he is a really solid grappler. So we've never seen him go over 100 fantasy points. So for me, that's kind of enough to take me off him here, at least in terms of being heavily exposed to him in DFS. But at the same time, I don't think he's going to be very popular. So that's maybe a reason to get a bit more involved. I'm going to roll into the next fight here. Again, if you guys are just joining and you are not a member of Occupy Fantasy yet, we're doing a contest. Just post in the comments, not on the video, or not in the live chat, on the actual video of how many combined significant strikes you think there will be in the main event. If you win that, we will be giving away a free month of Occupy Premium. And if you don't win, you can still get access for just around $7 to the model. Obviously, ownership projections, lineup builder, all that good stuff. You also have the article from Derek. And yeah, multi-lineup builder for those who like to mass multi-enter. Again, great value. But if you're not a member and you haven't been, give it a go. Comment how many significant strikes you think there will be in the main event on this video. We will be giving away that free month. Going into the feature bout here, we have a pretty interesting underdog. And I will say this card is kind of tough to find underdogs that we really like. A lot of inflated money lines. But Jasmine Lucindo minus 185 here against Angela Hill. Angela Hill, I think this is her 23rd or 4th, 5th something fight in the UFC. Just a great vet, right? I mean, she's kind of a gatekeeper in a way, but she's a high level gatekeeper, right? Like if you can't beat Angie Hill, you're probably not a top 10 strawweight. And yeah, I think Hill is definitely slowing down a little bit, but she really has rounded out her game. Earlier in her career, grappling was a major, major hole and flaw for her. I mean, she's definitely corrected that to the point that she's even scoring a submission over a fighter in Luana Pinheiro, who I don't really rate that highly, but it does kind of show you that Hill is making progress even in her advanced age for the division. Win over Ketlin Souza last time out. Pretty close fight. Looked decent there. Loss against Ricci. I actually thought she looked pretty good and maybe won. But I'm going to be lying if I don't think she's slowing down. At the same time, she's taking an opponent here in Lucindo, who has youth on her side. She's going to be probably the slightly more athletic fighter here, quicker. But yeah, much, much younger, born in 2002, which makes her what, 2000, 23 years old, very, very young. And sometimes we see that youth not only in her ability and skill, but also in her decision making. I mean, some questionable moments for her, even in her wins. Hasn't been scoring all that well for DFS. Coming off a loss to Amanda Lemos, where she really just couldn't get off her back. More of a favorable stylistic matchup here with Angela Hill. But I will say, I think Hill is one of my favorite underdogs. Not exactly a hot take. If you're looking at the money lines, it's one of the closer on the card. I just think she's a little bit disrespected here. And a la an Alvin Hines from a few weeks ago, even in a loss, she could could score pretty well. So if you're really kind of struggling to find dogs that you like, I think Hill has one of the higher floors. This fight very likely to go to the distance. I actually think if I'm making a pick right now, I do like Angela Hill. I think Lucindo is the more dangerous striker, but if Hill can pull her into the clinch, I think she's going to have an advantage there. I actually think Hill could and should shoot a few takedowns of her own as well, because while Lucindo does have good BJJ, she's shown that she kind of struggles to get off of her back. So an interesting fight. I'm going to take a look at the model in terms of ownership here over on DK. Um, yeah, Hill not all that popular. Neither is Lucindo. I mean, they're pretty much evenly owned on both sites. So if you want to get exposure to this fight, I think either way you go, you're kind of presenting yourself with some upside in terms of being an optimal build without too much duplication in large field tournaments. Excuse me. Always tough doing the show yourself because there is no time to breathe in between takes. But yeah, I do like this fight. I do think Hill's the side. Am I confident in her as an underdog? No, not necessarily. But relative to the rest of the card, I do think she's one of the better dogs. Speaking of solid underdogs, we got a pretty interesting fight here between Andre Touchy Feely and Christian Rodriguez. Both these guys lost to Mel Costa last time out, which is interesting. So UFC does do this often in their matchmaking. But yeah, Feely almost stuck his neck into a guillotine. And I know this has kind of been a very popular talking point this week amongst the community, amongst media, etc. Just a really weird spot because Feely has the jiu-jitsu and he has the ability to kind of work out of that position. I don't know, fishy. I never want to say a fight's fixed or anything, but I do. I don't know. I don't feel great about that performance. Christian Rodriguez, the prospect killer, he's been really solid. Coming off a loss though to Costa as well, a fight that he struggled early. He did kind of come alive in that third round, but it was a little bit too little, too late. Went over Bashi in Bashi's debut, taking out Bulgarian Simon, Raul Rosas, again, prospect killer, but losing to a vet, Julian Rosa, and also losing to Jonathan Pierce. And some may consider this fight similar in some ways. So Feely, not the same wrestler as far as like Bashi goes, but he's been taking on a really solid level of opponent. I think he could mix in the grappling here. Longtime member of that team, Alpha Male, kind of known for their grappling ability. And when he's at his best, he can do everything. He's solid enough on the feet that I think he's going to be competitive here as well. So I think like the most likely outcome is probably Rodriguez wins a pretty close decision. But we're looking at the money line and we're looking at the DFS prices. I mean, Feely plus 195, plus 207 on some books. I just think the line's too wide. And I think it's a little bit of recency bias because he looked terrible against Costa, but again, it was such a weird fight. And while Rodriguez does have a pretty solid front choke series, I don't think it's on the level of Acosta. I also don't think he's going to be chasing that early, which is where we kind of saw Feely fall into that. And there's been a lot of good words coming out from media and Feely's camp this week. I think I forget where he's training. I don't think he was with Team Alpha Male this whole camp, but he seems totally locked in. Just had a kid, so some intangibles in his favor. Again, if I'm picking this fight, I think Rodriguez probably gets it done via close decision, but the value's on the Feely side. I just feel that way pretty strongly. I mean, maybe he's just past his prime at this point, and that last fight wasn't some sort of mirage, but he's been taking on the better level of competition. As good as Rodriguez has looked against these prospects, when it comes to him fighting vets, I mean, not quite the same fighter. And I'm someone who's been very high on Christian Rodriguez. So I do like Rodriguez here, but I think Feely is the side if you're looking for value. I don't think either of these guys are very top popular when it comes to DFS. Feely especially, I mean, super unowned. The issue, I guess, is that he's kind of priced close to being a favorite at just 7,800. And yeah, Rodriguez not getting much love either. I mean, definitely more popular than Feely in terms of DFS, but I wouldn't mind playing either side. It's tough to call this fight a priority, but again, on a card where we're starving for underdogs, I don't mind mixing in a little bit of Feely. Again, I just think both these guys are well rounded. I just think Feely's a bit more dangerous on the feet in terms of his one shot power. Not that he's going to KO Rodriguez, but he could win the moments over the minutes here, and that could be enough. Another interesting matchup here between John Matsumoto and Miles Johns at, I believe, bantamweight. Matsumoto coming off a very close loss to Rob Font. I cashed on Font there, but if I'm being 100% honest, fight could have gone either way. I thought Matsumoto may have done enough. I was really holding my breath holding that ticket. But yeah, Matsumoto, really talented young prospect. He's looked great since he's made his debut. Wins over Argueta, Katona. Not the best competitions, but tricky in that they're relatively well-rounded. Rob Font, obviously, a guy who's been kind of in and out of the top 10 for most of his last few years in the division. So, yeah, I do think Matsumoto is in a good spot here. And I actually think this matchup with Miles Johns is a bit of a step down. So Johns is one of these fighters that's talented, right? He's a good wrestler, he's a good striker, but I don't know that he's as good as the sum of his parts, if that makes sense. It's a cliche, but he doesn't mix the martial arts as well as some of the other guys in this division. Really strong and powerful, but he tends to fade, right? Gas is out late in his fights at times, even when he looks great early. His striking is dangerous but fairly predictable, kind of spams hooks. And then when he is throwing combinations, it's like he kind of gets locked into these patterns. And we see him countered and put away at times. So I don't know. I do think he's talented, but I think he's past his prime. I just think this is a spot where they're trying to get Matsumoto back in the win column. Again, John's going to be competitive early here, but I think Matsumoto is the more potent finisher. Wouldn't be surprised for him to find a KO, but I actually think the most likely outcome here is actually Matsumoto to maybe win by submission. We'll get to the long shot bets later, a little bit of a preview. I love him on the sub line. I think it's almost plus 300 some books, depending where you look. Johns is going to be shooting takedowns. Matsumoto has an excellent guillotine. We saw it against Argueta, very similar fighter, comparing him to Miles Johns. Short wrestlers, kind of stocky, muscular guys that don't really have long necks, but Matsumoto put him away on the ground. I think he could do the same here against Johns. Really love the price as well at 8,500. I will say Johns could score well if this is a close decision because he is going to be looking for takedowns. Matsumoto, as good as he is in terms of jiu-jitsu, just a 57% takedown defense in the UFC. He has been taking on a lot of grapplers, though. Not fun, but prior. But yeah, I like Matsumoto here. One of my favorite DFS plays. I don't think he's showing right now in terms of ownership, but yeah, definitely someone I have circled that I want to have a lot of exposure to. So yeah, let's just do a little bit of housekeeping here again. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, we're doing a giveaway. If you have never been a member of Occupy Fantasy before, you can get 1 month free of our premium content if you guess the number of significant strikes in the main event. Again, not in the chat, in the comments below the video. If you haven't been a member of Occupy, guess the number of significant strikes, or if you have been a member, you can do it for fun. But we'll pick whoever's closest that hasn't. Again, like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you don't win the contest, you can still get access to the premium content here. UFC slate breakdowns, Occupy model, ownership projections, lineup builder, all that good stuff. But let's keep plugging away, making pretty good time tonight. Another pretty interesting matchup stylistically between Christian Leroy Duncan and Eric Anders. CLD came into the promotion with a lot of hype, really known as this super talented kickboxer, and he is, but he can be tentative at times. He is one of these guys that really puts a ton of power between every shot, but at the same time, I don't know that he has as much power as maybe he's advertised to have. Just took on Puliev, really mediocre fighter, wasn't able to put him away, and he wins via KO. I mean, Ribeiro is what he is, and then to Lulin, that was actually a knee injury. Dusko was the knee injury, excuse me. He did KO to Lulin, but that was ground and pound. I think he's a little bit overrated. At the same time, Eric Anders has talked about how this is the last fight on his contract and he could be retiring. Whenever you hear about a fighter retiring, very, very tough to get excited about that. Coming off a win over Chris Weidman, but that fight was insane. He was dropped by Chris Weidman. If you're getting dropped by Chris Weidman, it's tough for me to want to take much of you against a fighter like Leroy Duncan. I will say Anders is the better wrestler, former Alabama linebacker, football season right around the corner. But yeah, he can get low. You can wrap a guy up and take him to the ground. Average is 1.7 takedowns per 15 minutes. Leroy Duncan obviously has to sprawl and brawl in almost all of his fights, 72% takedown defense in the UFC. But I think even if Anders takes him down, I think he's mostly going to be working back to his feet. The win over Pickett via decision, I had a play on Anders inside the distance there. The fact he couldn't finish Pickett on the mat tells me all I need to know here. Even if he's taking Leroy Duncan down early, I don't think he's going to be able to keep him there or find a submission. So I do like the Duncan side. I will say the money line is absolutely insane. Leroy Duncan just not consistent enough for me to want to pay -4 to -500 depending on your book. But yeah, I do think he's the side. Could he find the KO? Certainly. I think he's probably overpriced though in terms of DFS because he's going to have to work off of that wrestling and find a spot for a KO. So there's a chance this fight goes longer than it should. I like the Duncan side. Not super confident, though. He has been super inconsistent. Not to use super twice in the same sentence. But Anders with a foot out the door, talking about how he may be retiring after this one. Just can't trust a fighter who may be retiring, right? And yeah, Leroy Duncan is one of the top 1 plays on the slate at 30%. And yeah, we'll move right along here. I did see we finally got a little comment in the chat here. I'll pull that up. Appreciate you, Mr. Grapefruit. Yeah, 8,700 for Fluffy's very nice. I like it. I think you want to have him in almost every lineup. If you're playing like 100, though, I don't think it hurts to have maybe 10 with Dolidze again. If Dolidze could overpower him early, like we've seen him do at times against Dawkins, against Hermanson, um, I mean, he has a path. Again, I just think it's very, very early that he needs it. But if Hernandez comes out slow, I wouldn't be shocked to see him maybe kind of pull off the upset. I think his window closes fast, though. Again, I'm on the Hernandez side. One of my favorite plays. The model loves him. But again, he's super popular. Maybe a spot to hedge if you're just super, super exposed. But I'm with you. Definitely one of my favorites. But moving into the next fight here, we got, I'm going to mispronounce Sakira. Rafael Cerquera taking on uh, Jordan Walker, right? Julius Walker, excuse me. Thinking of baseball, Cardinals outfielder. But yeah, Julius coming off a loss, but an impressive loss, up a weight class, or not up a weight class, but taking on Alonzo Menafield, the guy who's been ranked, to come in and take that fight on short notice against a guy as dangerous as Menafield and look as good as he did, gave a really good showing of himself. And he actually tweeted a picture of himself next to what he looked like when he weighed in last time. Super cut, definitely filled out. His frame looks way more dangerous, and he's in a great spot here. It's like the UFC's like, hey, thanks for coming in against Metafield. We needed the late notice. Let's give you the most winnable fight we have in the division, and that's against Sakara. Sakara, a lot of KOs on the regional scene, but in both of his fights against Aslan and Bukowskis, you just rush him, and he backs up, and he covers himself, and that's it. That's the whole fight. This guy does not like to be hit. It's not even that he's being put out cold. He just doesn't seem to have much grit or fight in him, which at this level is just inexcusable. So do I think Walker's like worth 9,400? Like if we're generally speaking, do I think Walker should be, I don't know, what's the lineup right now? Minus 700 against anyone? No, probably not. But if there was someone to be that against, it probably is Sakara. But the unders here are actually probably the safer way to go if you're talking about betting. I'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, I think Walker, he has that upside that we look for in DFS. First round KO upside, quick win bonus upside. I think we actually saw that in both of those losses for Sakara. So if Walker's kind of dialed in here, this could be a very quick fight. He can score tremendously well. Definitely someone you want exposure to. Taking a look at the graphic here, we got Walker rating with a 182 OF index in the model again as a 3 round fighter compared to Hernandez, who's a 5 round fighter. Reasonably priced. He is going to be popular though, 39% owned, but definitely someone I want heavy exposure to. But yeah, I mean, is he the best? I don't know. Is he still learning on the job? Yes. Are his skills entirely refined? No. But he's well rounded enough. I think that Cerquera is just kind of a glass cannon, and I don't even know how much of a cannon we can call him because it's been a long time since we've seen him really cause any damage in a cage. So yeah, I do like Walker there a lot. Next fight here, another pretty hot prospect. Not to call Walker a hot prospect, but in a shallow light heavyweight division, he could be. Elijah Smith coming in here off a win via decision over Vince Morales. Really competitive fight. He looked good, but Morales is kind of a crafty vet. Taking on a fight here against Toshiomi Kazama, kind of similar to the last matchup when it almost feels like the UFC is going to do him a bit of a favor. Kazama coming off a win, but just a guy who comes out 100 miles an hour, really no technical refinement to his abilities on the feet. He does have decent jujitsu. I mean, he's capable of scoring a submission, but really just a poor decision maker. No, not really tentative enough. And I don't want guys to be tentative, but like he doesn't take his time in so many words. Smith, I think, is overrated as a prospect, right? If I'm being completely honest, at least slightly. Because minus 800 here in your second fight, off a decision that was probably more competitive than it should have been. Against a guy in Kazama who can be dangerous early, like I don't know how much I love it. At the same time, Smith is a powerful striker. Morales is super durable. I don't want to put too much in the last fight because Kazama probably isn't UFC level, even though he's coming off a win. As weird as that is, because Gregorio isn't. It just is what it is in today's UFC. I mean, we have fights every single week. So you're going to deal with some lower level opponents at times. But yeah, I do like Smith here. I think he probably wins by KO. But at the same time, I think he's a little bit overrated. I just think this is such a good matchup for him that he should be able to get it done regardless. Yeah. Moving right along. Once again, guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out the links in the description below. Try not to plug too much, but I will again in a little bit. But before we do, let's get into this matchup here between Jocelyn Edwards and Priscilla Cachoeira. Edwards coming off back-to-back wins. She spent some time fighting up at 145 pounds, I believe. But yeah, I think I got to double check. I think this fight's at. Uh, yeah, this fight's at 135. She's fought at 145 before, but she's come a long way in her career. Like early on, did not look like a fighter. Some really kind of mediocre performances, but she's seemingly got it together. Spent some time with Valentina Shevchenko a few camps ago. Starting to round out her game. Certainly looks stronger, much stronger than she did earlier in her career. She seems focused. Her striking has come a long way. Still not like someone I'd consider a top 10 or even maybe 15 fighter in the division, but she does have a lot of wins. And she's got a lot of wins left in this division if she's going to be taking on people like Priscilla Cachoeira. Cachoeira is dangerous on the feet, right? She has KO power, one of the more powerful punchers in the division, but that's really all she has going for her. Her defensive grappling is absolutely terrible. And I think Edwards would be a fool, an absolute fool, not to just lean on her grappling here. And I expect she will. So I'm not calling Edwards a fool. I'm just saying she would be. But yeah, let's take a look here. We have the quote here from the Daily Plug. Shouts out to Derek Phillips, our writer. Again, if you get access to the premium content, you get the full article. And there's breakdowns like this for every fight. This is just one small paragraph from a longer write up about this fight and about Edwards. But Edwards should be looking to ragdoll Cachoeira with takedowns whenever she wants, racking up ground control, submission attempts, and hopefully a finish. She ranks third in the model on DraftKings, where she's a much better play overall due to the scoring there. And again, much like Rodriguez last week at 8,600, it's going to be hard not to play a bunch of her. So again, only 8,600. And rating is the third best play in the model. Not showing up as one of the highest owned plays, though. So Edwards, excellent play for DFS. But again, she needs to go for the takedowns. I do think she will. Average is 1.3 per 15 minutes, but it took her a while to kind of find out that she had that advantage over a lot of girls. And yeah, I do think she's tough enough that even if could, well, excuse me, even if Kishiro lands a little bit early, I do think she's able to weather that and kind of pull away. Again, she has to grapple. I think she will though. Yeah, Priscilla can be dangerous. She has KO power, but we haven't really seen Edwards hurt too much on the feet, so not something I'm going to expect. And Kachero is someone who fought down, I think, at 125 for most of her career. So she's coming up, and Edwards is, I think, technically coming down, even though she's at her home at 135 pounds. But usually Kashar is bigger than a lot of girls when she does fight down a weight class. She's going to be the smaller fighter here, which does play to the favor of the grappler. We're also in the Apex small cage. Just another thing that plays to the favor of the grappler. Another interesting matchup here between Uros Medic or Medic and what's his name? Or Gil Urbina. But yeah, this is kind of a low level matchup. I know some people really rate Medic. I mean, he's dangerous on the feet, but he just throws, right? And that works sometimes. At the same time, if you take on anyone able to counter or able to take you down, he's very susceptible to being finished himself. I will say I think he's the better fighter in this matchup. Gilbert Urbina was on The Ultimate Fighter a few seasons ago. I got KO'd by Trayshawn Gore, who's about to be cut. I got submitted by Brian Battle, which isn't terrible, but since then he really hasn't done much. I mean, lost to Radke, went over Kosi, who wasn't really UFC level, but I don't know. He's okay. He's got fundamentals. I just don't think that he's physically imposing enough to do what he needs to against Medic here. The path to beating Medic has been via the takedown. I do think Urbina is the better grappler. I just don't think that's something he could do for 15 minutes. I also expect he has issues closing the distance against Medic, who, again, is going to be super aggressive in his striking. I do like Medic here to get done. Again, he does rate pretty well in the model, and he is going to be popular at a reasonable price on both sites. But yeah, I do think Urbina is live just because Medic is so inconsistent. I just can't necessarily get to him as an underdog, knowing I don't rate his game all that highly at all. I think even if he is finding early takedowns, it's not going to last for long. I think Medic does eventually clip him. But again, low level matchup, probably not one you want to get too invested on either way. Another somewhat low level matchup here between Julia Stoliarenko and Gabriela Fernandez. Stoliarenko, famously a one trick pony. We talk about one trick ponies, guys who only grapple or guys who only strike, girls. Stoliarenko takes it to the next level, right? She's only a grappler, but she only goes for arm bars. She is an arm bar specialist. Almost all of her wins have come via arm bar. I will say she's amazing at it. She's tremendous in terms of her ability to find that submission against a wide range of competition. She's taking on someone here in Hernandez who I think will be ready for it. Hernandez coming off a massive win, priced at 6,600, where she finished Hong Kong as a huge, huge underdog, one of the biggest upsets of the year. Landed a nice head kick. That was a club and sub, but she looked decent on the feet against one of the division's better strikers. And yeah, I mean, the fights she's losing are to girls who are going to grapple her consistently. Stolyarenko, while she's dangerous with the jiu-jitsu, she doesn't really have the wrestling to take the fight there. And if she does, I think Fernandez has the jiu-jitsu to protect herself. So Stolyarenko, if she wins, it's probably an early submission. It's probably that armbar right away. And you're going to want her in your lineups. But I think like 8 times out of 10, we're going to see Fernandez kind of weathering that early and either finding a KO after Stolyarenko kind of gives up or just kind of dominating her for the extent of 3 rounds once those arm bars are kind of defended and passed, whether it be just staying standing or protecting herself on the mat. But some danger here, certainly. Stolyarenko's found that armbar against really talented girls, i.e., Lipsky in the past, who's not great, but someone who has kind of a similar trajectory to Fernandez at this point. So yeah, I think Gabby gets it done. I don't think she's going to be too popular. There's some upside for her in DFS, but if you're desperate for underdogs, Stoli does have a ceiling. I will say that. Last fight on the card. Speaking of low level, we have Cody Brundage, excuse me, here taking on Eric McConico. Brundage, one of the weirder careers in UFC history. I don't know. I think the whole betting world lost a ton on him when he had that win over Jacob Malkoun via DQ. Fight Malkoun was dominating. Reese, guy who a lot of people were high on going into that fight, won via KO on a slam when Reese was trying to lock in an armbar. Bo Nickel lost, whatever. Abdul, I'll just call him ARA, just dominating Brundage. That fight turned to a no contest because of strikes to the back of his head. Some would argue Brundage was purposely turning his head. Win over Marquez, who's completely washed. And then, strangely, he looked pretty damn good last time out against an up-and-comer in Abdul Malik. So, I don't know. What is Brundage? He's an enigma. Is he great? No, but he's taking on a guy here in Eric McConico who really isn't all that great either. Completely starched last time out against Ruzaboyev. Just slow on the feet. Not going to be a great grappler. I do think Brundage is the side, but do you ever want to pay a favorite price for Brundage against anyone? I don't know. The thing is on DK, where he's only 8,200, he looks great. I believe on FanDuel, he's pretty cheap there as well. And this is probably going to be a quick fight. I do prefer the Brundage side. I think he more often than not is going to get it done. But yeah, he's the better price fighter of the two here. You could probably hedge with a little McConico, but I think Brundage's upside is very, very good. McConico, again, took his last fight, I believe, on short notice. Just pulling up some stuff on him here. This fight got made late in the week. I did watch each of their more recent fights, but when you watch Brundage, like, what are you going to glean from that? But yeah, I mean, he took the Ruzaboya fight on short notice to get into the promotion. Now he's kind of here. And Brundage, another guy I think they're kind of repaying a favor to after taking some really tough matchups against Nickel, against this kid they're trying to build in Malik. So it's like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I think Brundage is the side here. I think he gets it done, but Brundage is tough to trust, right? So yeah, just keep that in mind. Around a minus 150 to minus 170 favorite, depending on your book. So yeah, we will get into the best bets in just a minute. But yeah, first let's go over the top plays in the Occupy model. We have Hernandez, again, 193 OF index, followed by Walker, then Jocelyn Edwards. Highest projected owned, Hernandez, Smith, Walker, Medic, Leroy Duncan. No real surprises there. We had the excerpt from Derek. And then, yeah, before I get into the best bets, I do just want to once again plug this little contest we have going. If you're not a member of Occupy, you want access to the premium content. That's going to get you the model, which has all the fighters ranked by OF index. On both sites, you could build for FanDuel or DraftKings. Lineup Builder, also the article that Derek puts out, and all of our minds are available in the Discord. Usually we're just tilting in their fight nights, but if you guys ever have questions about any fighters, any of their backgrounds, anything related to MMA, even if it's not the UFC, we got a PFL card tomorrow as well, jump in. Again, $7 entry point, but if you want to win a free month membership, just comment below. Again, comment below, not in the chat, in the comments. How many significant strikes do you think they'll be combined in the main event? Whoever's closest and is a new member, hasn't been a member before, will win that free month. And yeah, if you don't win or you don't want to play the contest, just go ahead and sign up. Sign up. Just $7 entry point, about as good as it gets. Again, quick recap: last week went 3-1 on the best bets. Not going to talk through them all again. Again, Rebecca versus Duncan, a bit of a bad beat, but that fight was amazing. We did hit one of our long shots, Pulayev by KO, which wasn't that long of a shot, I will say. But yeah, let's get into today's best bets. Again, guys, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Helps us keep getting this free content out to you. And those comments for that contest are really just to help the algorithm. I'll be transparent. We want to get this out in front of more people. It's a very competitive space. But here are my best bets from the card. And when I say best bets, I don't want to go over minus 200. I don't want you to have to pay 2 to 1. It's tough to call it best, even if it is value, if you have to pay a premium. So, what I'm looking for here is usually minus 200. Most of them fall around the minus, between there and minus 100, but there will be exceptions from time to time. Last week, 3-1, great bounce back. Abu Dhabi was a nightmare 0-4. But like I said, the longer we do these videos, we're going to see that record really inflate. And last week, great time to bounce back. I got 5 picks this week, only 4 last week. First one, Walker Sakara ends in round 1. All of Sakara's UFC fights have ended in round 1. Walker looks amazing coming into this camp. He's a massive favorite. I think he can just march forward and KO him. Sakara in his wins prior to the UFC, pretty much all of them in round 1. So we're hedged there. You get a better price than you would on Walker KO. You get, I think, even a better price than the minus 1.5. So I just like this fight to end in round 1. Jocelyn Edwards, again, as long as she grapples, she should absolutely dominate here. Could she find the finish? Yes. Could she win by decision? With the minus 3.5 point spread on DraftKings, you're covered either way. Again, you have to combine the scorecards between the 3 judges and win by 3.5. So if they all go 30-27, that's a minus 9. You're covering 9. If you get two 30-27s and one goes 29-28 the other way, what's that? You're still covering. But yeah, I just think she's going to win every round, and it's going to be so clear because of the grappling that the judges can't give anything to Cachuara, who was a moment winner, not a minute winner. I don't want to pay the crazy juice for the Edwards money line, so this is just a way to lower that price a bit. Another pretty interesting fight here between Medic and Urbina. Again, I think Urbina could maybe find something on the mat here against Medic, who's a terrible grappler. But if he doesn't, I expect he'll get KO'd. And I expect this happens relatively quickly between 2 guys who are usually pretty aggressive, especially Medic. And yeah, this is kind of a step down for him. He should just come forward and be super aggressive. So I like the under 1.5 at around minus 150. Urseg versus Osborne under 2.5. So originally I had Urseg inside the distance. And then I thought to myself, Osborne has a chance here with this being at 135 pounds. He could maybe find his chin. We did see Urseg kind of sparked against Cara France. And Osborne, if nothing else, he hits tremendously hard. So let's just go under 2.5. A little bit more juice than what we would have been getting with Ursig inside. But if it goes to decision, it is what it is. We'd lose either way. So I think this is the way. You're kind of covered in the most ways, right? We don't want to leave openings to lose bets. I think under 2.5, you're covering most of the outcomes in this fight. And then I do have a hedge for this, but Hernandez by KO or submission, I think as long as he survives early, he's going to put the pace on Dolidze like we've seen time and time again. And Dolidze's cardios look good, but he hasn't really been taking on grapplers or having to grapple extensively in his fights. He's either finding a quick finish on the ground or going to a striking war like he did with Vittori. Here against Hernandez, I mean, it's going to be grueling. I think Hernandez could probably get it done late, but we're covered if he does early as well. There's another angle. I think it's Hernandez and over 2.5. I don't mind around minus 160 if you don't want to lose if he wins a decision, but I do think the value getting plus money on him inside is nice. Long shots. Got some long shots for you here. Again, not tracking these. Again, if you're betting these, just sprinkle. But I think Angela Hill's money line, there's value there. Will I be surprised if she loses? Absolutely not. I just think plus 170 for her is a little bit insane. Same for Andre Fili. I think there's a little bit of recency bias off that terrible performance, but he does a lot of what Christian Rodriguez has struggled with. He's really well rounded, has the cardio to go 3 rounds. Rodriguez known to kind of gas guys out. I think Fili can last, and if it does go 3, it's probably competitive. Give me the 2 to 1, which should be a close fight. Matsumoto by submission. I actually think this is the most likely outcome in this fight. So to get my plus 275, I wish it was a little better. It was earlier in the week, but I want to give you guys odds close to what they are. Do these right before the show. Plus 275 looks good to me. And again, I love Hernandez. I think he gets it done, but look at this price. Dolidze to win and under 2.5. If you want to hedge, I think Dolidze has to get it done early, right? I did say the same thing about the Ritter and was wrong, but I think this is that fight kind of even more so, right? So Dolidze to win and under 2.5 plus 600 for that. So again, if you have a ton of exposure to Anthony Hernandez, that's a way to get a little bit of a hedge in. But yeah, I think that's just about it. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. I know a lot of you will be watching this after the live. Appreciate you as well. And just for the last time, we're doing a contest this week. If you've never been an Occupy member before, comment below the number of total significant strikes you think there will be in the main event. It has to happen before the card starts, right? Or before at least the main event. I'll definitely check the timestamps. But whoever is closest will win a month of premium content. And again, premium content includes the slate breakdowns, Occupy model, ownership projections, lineup builder, the daily plug written by Derek Phillips. But please like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you do join, jump in the Discord, say hi. And yeah, they're in there grinding NFL preseason right now. So yeah, get access to all the sports. The MLB plug article is ended, but we're still grinding in there. But yeah, fun card tomorrow. It is the Apex. After that, next week, I think we get Duplessis and Kamayev. So definitely looking forward to that one. But yeah, let's run it up this week. Make some money in both DFS and betting. Shouts out to Occupy Fantasy. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick Morrow DFS. But have a great weekend, everyone.